my opinion that this wasn't pushed by anyone in particular, but it's a political, half-cocked, unexamined idea that looks like it might be good, that it might placate and pacify the cannabis community, might get some votes right before an election, but the consequences of it to all of us have not been looked at.
As a Schedule 3 drug, there is a federal regulated pathway available, which I would assume everybody would have to comply with. Complying with a Schedule 3 drug is very difficult, and it opens the doors primarily to small pharmaceutical companies.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to a very special edition of We Talk News as we focus on a historic moment in the cannabis history and the cannabis prohibition this week, when the DEA decides to suggest and actually agree with the Health and Human Services recommendation of moving cannabis to Schedule 3. I'm Jimmy Young, the founder of Pro Cannabis Media. So happy to be able to showcase some of the talent that we have on our We Talk News program on a regular basis. One, Karen Black from Arizona, LeVanna Vassau from California, and Andrew Behringer from Washington, D.C. join me right now. So I'm going to cut right to the chase and get everybody's initial reaction. Karen, when you heard that the DEA is going to recommend Schedule 3 for cannabis, what did you think immediately?
Immediately, I was a little surprised at the timing, if you will. There had been some talk about maybe rescheduling coincidental with 420. I thought, if anything, it might happen a little closer to the election. So it seemed to kind of come out of nowhere. So the timing was interesting to me.
Okay. And LeVanna, what was your initial reaction to this news item of the week?
Big news. It's going to be another, it's almost going to be a whole new set of rules, whole new set of regulations. One thing about being on the show for the past year and getting the input from all the other states is I don't think there's a single state in this country right now that it's had a good rollout. That part, and I just really want it to be descheduled, not rescheduled personally, but I understand that this is the way to that goal.
Exactly. Small steps. Andrew, the women picked up some good points right off the bat. What was your initial reaction to the announcement this week?
Like both the previous people just said, which I completely agree with. It should be descheduled, not reschedule. Unfortunately, the process, what they're doing is needed. I do have to agree also with Karen. It's a little coincidental of the timing, but also at the same time, you have to think, what's in about 2 or 3 weeks? Oh, right, the primaries for the election. And then if the recommendation does get out, the rollout takes are usually around 6 to 8 months, which is around late September, early October, which gets a little bit closer to that election time. So they can, the administration can agree to that, they did something maybe to try to attract a younger crowd. I'm not sure.
But you said they did something. And that may be the biggest part of this announcement is for, since 1971, the Controlled Substances Act has dictated what particular drugs are in different schedules. And in this case, cannabis had always been alongside some of the most dangerous and addictive drugs out there that have no medical value, drugs like heroin and ecstasy and LSD. That alone, moving it away from those drugs, is pretty much the biggest part of this story. As far as the details go and what we talk about, here and moving forward and what's next, that is all going to be determined. But just think about it. For years, the cannabis community has been having to fight the fact that this was scheduled alongside those particular drugs because it had no medicinal value. I guess it does now. Karen, what do you think about what moving it off Schedule 1 and the impact of that?
Well, I think you summed it up. It doesn't belong with those other drugs. and there's a lot of research, increasingly more research, that alcohol is much worse for you than cannabis. So, where's alcohol on the schedule?
It's
Um,
not.
did anyone else hear that the DEA is also considering Schedule 2, not just Schedule 3? I read that somewhere and then I couldn't go back and find where it was, but I heard that Schedule 2 is also on the table.
I haven't heard that, but I wouldn't surprise me. LeVanna, have you?
No.
Yeah. And I don't think that makes a lot of sense at this point,
Didn't.
Go ahead, LeVanna. I mean, are we happy that it's no longer at Schedule 1, bottom line?
The HHS was the one that made the recommendation and then sent it off to the DEA. So it was up to the DEA to make a yes or a no, yay or nay, and then off to public opinion.
Right. LeVanna,
I hope it's not a Schedule 2.
you're connected. You're connected to the California scene. Have you been able to talk to anybody in California about the reaction in that state?
Nobody's happy about it in any way whatsoever. Because, I think a lot of people are making a lot of assumptions right now, which I don't find to be founded. Although in the past, I've found that I didn't listen to these same people and they were totally right. So it's hard for me not to believe them this time and like try to listen to them. But, the big talk is that they're assuming that this will take away everyone who has an existing license and doesn't have a pharmaceutical license to go with its ability to grow, that it's going to take away possibly our rights to do home grow. Some people are excited because they're saying it's going to go back to like the 80s, where it might be, if it's going to be classified in those Schedule 3 drugs, where the risk is going to get so high that it might eliminate a lot of the crime and at the same time make black market growing more of products more valuable again, which they're not very valuable right now.
Yeah. As I look at some of the feedback and the reactions around the country and everything, the other thing about moving it off Schedule 1 is it basically is saying it's a less dangerous drug than those others. And to be honest with you guys, one of the things that gets me really upset is when it is being referred to as a drug. If you watch the comments on our YouTube channel, Pro Cannabis Media, I love reading them all because they all have different thoughts about them. A lot of political stuff, we've covered a lot of that, but the fact that it is now, they're actually recognizing the fact that this is not an addictive subject, and we're talking about a plant, not a drug. To me, a drug is made in a laboratory, and then they put it out and it's in these little white or yellow capsules, and everybody gets prescriptions from their doctors. That to me, those are drugs. All right. And now you look at the fact now that it's on Schedule 3 with ketamine, anabolic steroids, and I know there's one more.
Tylenol 3.
Which one?
I think Tylenol 3.
Tylenol with codeine.
That's right. The fact that codeine, Tylenol is on this list and now cannabis is right next to it is bizarro. But let me just ask each one of you, the plant versus drug. Karen, plant versus drug. Is it a plant or is it a drug in your estimation?
It's both. And some of the best healing agents in our entire world are plants. So it's got psychoactive properties. So it depends on how you define drug, but plant medicine and your food are two of the best things you can do for your body. So yeah, it's a plant, and that's why I've always had a problem with the government telling me what I can and cannot do with a plant.
The government shouldn't be telling you what you can or cannot do at all, but that's of course what governments do, is they try to set up parameters, laws that we all have to follow. LeVanna, drug or plant? California.
I mean, drug is a government word, drug's a human word. The plant has been around since before the word or concept of drugs existed. So obviously it's a plant medicine.
Yep, and that's how I look at it. Andrew, your drug versus plant?
I honestly gonna have to say it's how you use it. Myself as an epileptic patient who consumes cannabis on a daily basis to help save my life, I use it for medical purposes, and other people, if they want to use it for adult use purposes and recreational That's up to them. It's how you use it. It's up to the person, I believe. And it's important, and hence why it's important to make rules, regulations, structure to make it roll out. Because unfortunately, there's only one way this industry is going to go, and that's forward, and it's going to be bumpy, and the federal government's going to take over. And we, the cannabis industry, the cannabis people, it's not, we can't fight it. It's how we save as much as possible, because it's the federal government. It's coming. Lobbyists and other big industries are trying to take over. They've been planning for 30 plus years. So it's uphill battle in 100 different ways.
Yeah, and it's
Can I add something in?
well, sure. I was just going to give the definition of cannabis standard time again, which is 1 step forward, 2 steps back. That's what's been going. Go ahead, LeVanna.
I would say, because you didn't give me the option for that, but I feel like it's actually more of a vitamin, like a nutrient.
Okay, because there are positive qualities to using the plant responsibly.
And
That's
the
why
cannabinoid system is the largest in the body.
Because we don't know that it's not a vitamin, really, is what I'm saying. But I could say that I know in my heart that it is. And I would say that most other avid users who do use it for medicinal purposes and also happen to get pleasure out of those medicinal purposes most of the time would also say the same thing, that it feels like a vitamin, a nutrient to them. And that we haven't even, really gotten into the raw cannabis aspects, which I'm always trying to talk about, which is a whole nother level to the plant's nutrition.
There you go. Hey,
Yeah, and that's one of my concerns is with scheduling to Schedule 3, rescheduling to Schedule 3, is now it could become even more regulated by the FDA. The FDA can say, okay, now you just get a little THC capsule. You'll miss the synergistic effect, the entourage effect. You'll miss the benefits, like LeVanna was just saying, of the different flavonoids and terpenes and that kind of stuff. So I hope it's not a power grab by the feds. And I personally like seeing stuff done state by state, because you learn from what other states do well and you learn from what other states do wrong. And, if it's anything like the Obamacare rollout, I mean, cannabis legalized federally and stuff could be an absolute disaster.
yeah.
Go
ahead, Andrew.
I just want to add, Karen said a beautiful thing there. I do have to add on to exactly like the Obamacare, which they base kind of like on Massachusetts state level medical care program. That's exactly what I hope the best is, that, not every state does it the best right now. No one's done it the best, but every state learns a little bit more, and hopefully the federal government will learn and pick one state that has done it, or maybe like pick things in here and there, and then make that the federal structure and regulation to then go off of as like the blueprint. It may not be the best rolling out, but like at least it's like the best that they can do in, like, I don't know, like 4 and 5 years maybe.
So there's another note here that I'm going to share, and then we're going to wrap up this segment, but it has to do with medical cannabis programs. And it says that no changes will happen to those medical programs in each state, the 38 states that have decriminalized it and have medical programs in place. They say it is, as far as the legal, and I hate the word recreational, but adult use markets in 24 states, this is wrong, there's 24 states. It says it's unlikely that they would meet the federal production, record keeping, prescribing, and other requirements for Schedule 3 drugs, which, again, they're recommending Schedule 3, but as they investigate, they may find that this is not Schedule 3. And we'll be able to kind of pontificate about that for a while. This is the thing about this whole story. It's not over. In fact, it's just beginning, kind of like this special Weed Talk News show. So Karen and LeVanna and Andrew, I thank you all for joining us. Some of you, one of you actually, may actually stick around for another segment, but we will be back with more of the Weed Talk News special about moving to Schedule 3 after this.
Coming up on We Talk News this week, WNBA superstar and Olympic champion Brittany Griner gets busted at a Russian airport for carrying hash oil.
Hi, everyone. I'm Elena Pinto, and this is Weed Talk News.
Hey, everybody. It's Brandon Jones with Be Green Distribution with the Missouri Cannabis Report.
I'm Karen Black from Greenfinger Consulting with the Arizona Cannabis Report.
I'm Matthew Friedlander, coming to you from the owner's office here at Skagit Organics.
I'm Amy Carter from Michigan Weedsters.
My name's Tom. You can find me over at Cannabis and Legalization News.
I'm Jill Goldsberry with We Talk News New Jersey, and we are back.
Andrew Behringer here reporting from Washington, D.C.
Our Canadian correspondent with We Talk News, Debbie Fazy, with the Canadian Toke of the Week.
I'm Doug Miller from High on Wall Street with this week's Cannabis Stock Report for Weed Talk News.
Welcome back to the second section of this special Weed Talk News edition. We're talking about the suggested move to Schedule 3 for cannabis. I'm Jimmy Young, the founder of Pro Cannabis Media. We're here again with LeVanna Vassau, who's our California correspondent. Now we're joined by our Oregon correspondent and our Washington State correspondent, Matthew Friedlander, and Marianne Cursetjee is with us as well. So the West Coast is now in session because I've got you all. I got the California girl and I've got Oregon and Washington State. One of the things they brought up in the last segment, guys, and I'm sure you didn't hear it, but Matthew, I'm going to turn it right to you because they talked about is when will a state actually get the rollout right? And there just hasn't been, right? And here you are, how many years in, and you're still fighting for basics that many other states already have. And for
sure, yeah, it's still a felony to grow a single planted home if you're not a licensed producer, processor, or a registered patient. So. I don't know when will the state get the rollout right? Who's going to be last? Idaho, maybe.
well, that's a very good guess. They have the worst law, or the most strict laws. Yeah.
Maybe by then they'll have it figured out. Who knows?
There you go. So, Marianne, you're someone who's in the business, in the industry, in Oregon. What's been the feedback from people you've been talking to about this? Are they happy that they did something?
Well, it's interesting. I feel like there's a duality here because there is certainly the excitement that the federal government made a move, but then there's also a lot of nervousness and a lot of fear about big pharma, about big companies, big tobacco coming in, and what that going to look like for the industry.
That seems to be a common theme, LeVanna. You mentioned that as well. So here to me, once again, I'm going to reiterate this point because we don't know the future. We don't know what the White House Budget Committee is going to say when they look at this. We don't know what the next step is going to be. We're talking about a delay here. Cannabis Standard Time is in play here. It is one step forward, two steps backward, or two steps forward and one step backward, however which way you want to look at it. It takes time to change something that has been vilified for over 50 years. Matthew, is there a win here? Is there a win for the industry? Is this considered a win, do you think?
I mean, I think it has to be. Schedule 1 is the worst place that cannabis could be. I think. The fear of big pharma coming in might be valid, but it's going to really depend on how these rules get shaped and what the final rules are that they come out with. It's interesting. With California and Oregon here, I think all three of our states have interstate commerce trigger bills on the books. And so interstate commerce is something that is a real possibility that could be happening with this. And so I think we were the last ones to add the interstate commerce trigger bill onto our books. But, that could be a really beneficial thing for a lot of companies. So,
yeah. I've been saying that too, that's what's I'm just waiting for that. That will save us
Right.
You know, once we can get the weed out of the state, we're growing the most over here. We got the best, you know, climate and the best, you know, for the terroir and everything, and the longest in the game, the oldest genetics and all that stuff.
Absolutely.
And just hoping we could get it to the people, and that is a definite big. There's some big pros here. Definitely.
And the biggest one we haven't really talked about is the elimination of the 280E, allowing cannabis businesses to actually write off regular business expenses. You know, you talk about injustice in this industry. There's everywhere you look, there is. That being said, this now allows a lot of the cannabis companies that are, you know, barely surviving an opportunity to ease up on those margins. Marianne, you're in it. Tell us, are you happy that these 280E clause is finally gone from the tax code?
Absolutely. I'm really excited about 280E. The reality of 280E, though, is for us as a cultivator, 280E is not that big of a deal for us because we're already able to include most of our expenses as cost of goods sold. But for retailers whose effective tax rate can be up to 75%, this is a massive lifesaver. For us, the way I see this playing out is about 2 weeks ago, a report came out that said that uncollectible debt is at 3.8 billion across the cannabis industry. So what I'm hoping that happens from this is that now the retailers can actually finally start paying their trade payables since their tax liability has been freed up. So I'm hoping that that's one of the trickle down effects or trickle up, depending on your perspective, that makes a big impact on everybody.
Matthew?
Yeah, I'm kind of in the same boat. We're a producer processor, so it hasn't affected us a ton, but I know a lot of our retail partners are pretty excited about the prospect.
And hopefully that will ease up some of the marketing dollars that are out there, because let's face it, for companies that are looking to actually survive and actually market their products like traditional businesses can do, they've never been able to do that. Now they're even talking, I even saw somebody say, you know what, this could actually lead to allowing cannabis companies on to advertise. Go ahead, LeVanna.
They don't do that in Canada. Actually, the advertisement is very strict.
Yeah.
They can't. So, you know, if you want to look at where the future of things are, where corporations have already taken over and where the weed's gotten really midsy, and you know, you can't advertise in Canada.
Right.
Now, I don't know about that. You don't see a lot of, you know, cigarette ads these days either.
No, I get it. And I get why and all that. And certainly
Tylenol. I've done guerrilla campaigning for Tylenol before because they can't advertise. All those companies.
So again, there may be an easing up of these restrictions. We don't know. But we do know one thing, you guys, Matthew, you brought this up about the interstate commerce, because all three states in the West are working around the restrictions, if you will. What blows me away is there actually is interstate commerce in the cannabis industry right now. You can't bring flower across state lines, but you can bring the recipes for the concentrates and the recipes for the edibles, and you can replicate them in a legal state. Isn't licensing interstate commerce? Who wants to handle that?
Well, I'll touch on a different part of the interstate commerce. I mean, there is a lot of product being bought at the retail stores on the West Coast and finding its way to a shelf somewhere out east or in the Midwest, not through legal channels. But yeah, we were contacted by a person from New York that swears they saw our RSO packaging in a dispensary somewhere in New York. And I
go back and forth, and there's the same stuff on the shelves of dispensaries in New York and illegal smoke shops.
Yeah.
Practically the same. The stuff in the new dispensaries is just a little newer. You can tell the packaging's newer, and the other stuff's older. And of course, I don't know, you know, a lot of these companies are doing it actually boldly, openly with legal, claiming it's all THCA and falls within the Farm Bill's definition of interstate commerce tradable.
Well, and we had, I I think our governor, or we were asking our attorney general to sign on to a letter asking the United States Attorney General what their opinion of interstate commerce was or is. And just a couple of days ago, they said they wouldn't sign that onto that letter because it was a Schedule 1, and they were in some kind of somebody had a lawsuit going on that they wouldn't be able to sign that. And now with Schedule 3 happening, they may be able to sign on to that letter. And that was, I believe, going to be a joint letter between the AGs of Oregon, Washington, and California.
Yeah.
So hopefully our attorney general, who is running for governor, will be happy to sign on to that now, but we'll see.
All right. Well, you know what? Again, it's not in Schedule 1 anymore. No. It's generated news stories. It's generated open talk. To me, that's perhaps the greatest thing that happened over the last week, is that we're getting closer and closer to what I believe is normalization and acceptance of this plant medicine. But it's not going to be easy, and it's not going to be overnight. All right, I've got plenty of people in my waiting room, guys, but I want to thank LeVanna and Marianne and Matthew for joining us here. I like the idea of these regular We Talk News correspondent talk shows, and we'll continue to talk more about Schedule 3 after this. It's a whole new world of weed out there, isn't it? Everyone is learning new ways to titrate, ingest, consume, imbibe, and engage with this plant medicine we call cannabis. Now, let me tell you my cannabis story. You know, I've had 4 major surgeries in the past 23 years and suffer from osteoarthritis with a variety of metal parts in my body and one on deck. Now, thanks to those chronic pain issues, I've been a medical patient in Massachusetts for almost 10 years now. I remember my first trip to a dispensary just outside of Boston, and I told the bud tender I didn't want to smoke it anymore. So I tried edibles, then tinctures, then vaping, and now if I'm going to smoke, I only use the Weegits filtration system. What? The Weegits.com, Weegits, that's weed, W-E-E-D, G-E-T-S.com, is where you'll find the planet's coolest product that cools the smoke from everyone's favorite flower. The guy that started this was a pretty good medical device manufacturer, and he created this maze pipe that cools the smoking process from 1300 degrees Fahrenheit upon inflammation down to just 90 degrees when it reaches your mouth. That's right, 1300 down to 90. That's why this maze pipe is amazing. Now, add in the code of PCMTV and you get 15% off. So just go to Weegits.com and check out the best way to enjoy a cooler smoke with less coughing and hacking and more peace of mind. Welcome back to the We Talk News special as we look back at an historic week in the cannabis prohibition fight, end of prohibition fight, if you will. I'm Jimmy Young, the founder of Pro Cannabis Media. We've got a new group in the room with me, 3 other correspondents on our We Talk News team. One is Joe Parsons from Virginia, Tina Tasaka from Nevada, and Thomas Howard in the Illinois area. And of course, everybody knows Thomas's show, the Cannabis Legalization News, on Sundays. Hey, I noticed it doesn't necessarily have to be at 3 o'clock Eastern on Sundays. Am I accurate on that?
It's 3 to 3:05. And so it's because we schedule it for 3:05, and so we can go at 3, but then because it's live. And so something could go wrong. And so we give ourselves 5 minutes of fudge room. Yeah.
We'd hope to make this live too, so I'm totally familiar with that. But let me go right around the group here and get your initial reactions when you heard that the DEA did acquiesce and did suggest the Schedule 3. Excuse me, Joe, let's start with you down in Virginia.
Well, so far, the initial reaction from everyone around here is that they're afraid that they're going to lose rights that they already have, such as cultivation.
Mhm.
You know, that's a big thing here because Virginia, we haven't yet adapted a rec market as of yet. So therefore, a lot of people grow. So with it now being moved from Schedule 1 to Schedule 3, will that change, and will that change on a coast to coast level?
Right.
That's been the big talk.
Yeah, and of course, New Jersey's still fighting for home grow as well as some of the other states as well. Tina, the initial reaction in your neck of the woods?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm hearing the most about 280E, to be honest. I think that that's first and foremost on everybody's mind, and certainly that it's the most significant news that's come out of cannabis for a while. It's the biggest headline that's come out. That's what I'm hearing, 280E, and I've certainly got some notes penned down here for sure to talk about.
Well, we've got a lawyer amongst us. Let's get Thomas's legal opinion. First of all, Thomas, were you surprised that the announcement actually came in the last week?
Oh, no, but I mean, it makes perfect sense that they dripped it so that they don't have any. I haven't read, nobody's read, nobody knows what it's going to actually say, and so everybody's just prognosticating. We're such little coherence engines, and so we try to figure out and make a narrative that works for ourselves. A lot of people are scared and excited. I'm really excited for our dispensary, which will be opening here in, I don't know, 6-9 months. Probably closer to 9, because we won't have to be an S corp because of IRC 200. Well, we can be an S corp but not have to be a C corp because of IRC 280E. The audit risk way down, and you can flow through your tax. So like a disregarded entity. So at the end of the year, a C corp retains earnings, and then if you want to pay dividends out, you get double taxed. An S corp is just more like a regular LLC where it just flows through to the owners. That's exciting that the industry is going to be less audited and less taxed. So it can hopefully buy some lobbyists and then legalize nationwide. That's the other thing that I'm really excited about, and not in any of these our 4 states, because they've all legalized, with Virginia kind of limping to the barn with their governor that they have. However, all these other states that haven't legalized, that don't really have a program. We set up legal fights to require them to at least recognize the medical cannabis. And Illinois is in an island of more like a peninsula, I guess, because Missouri's right there. But we have Iowa, Wisconsin, and Indiana. Kentucky's finally going. So like Kentucky announced that they were going the same time that Schedule 3 was coming out. So I was working. I'm like, what? Oh my goodness, this is early. But you have Indiana, you have Wisconsin, you have Iowa, and several other states that have no programs. And now, can I, as a medical patient in Illinois, go to where I won? Well, I didn't win. I graduated from law school in Wisconsin, moved back there, not during the winter, and then file suit against the state to require it to recognize cannabis as medicine.
Right. And that to me is recognizing the fact that this has medicinal qualities to it, and taking it away from the other drugs at Schedule 1 is the biggest thing. Now, the details, the devil's in the details. We're going to figure that out over the next few months as they do the public comment period and all that. But it's going to be interesting. Joe, Thomas mentioned what happened in Virginia a couple of weeks ago with your governor there. You're part of the advocacy movement in that state. Are people beat up, or are they more rejuvenated now? We get to keep fighting for the rights to legalize adult use.
Believe it or not, the fight is definitely on now, and there is more of a drive now to actually put another bill in the coming session, because basically the governor said that no matter how it was used, it was bad. And with this new news, it basically he has a foot in his mouth now. So basically Senator Rouse and Senator Kryzik, they both really want to push this through now. So we're looking forward to another bill being pushed this coming session. So we might not have to wait until the governor leaves office.
Right. And you know what, and again, thank you, Joe. I think the move off it, the prohibitionists now can't say, well, it has no medical value and it's on Schedule 1, right? I mean, they can't. It's just not going to happen.
Yeah, that's right. And then it's great because there's lawsuits that'll happen in our industry about the Dormant Commerce Clause. And so sometimes they say, because the state tries to self-deal all the licenses to their own residents. And for obvious reasons, political or whatever, but you're not allowed to do that. And so there's only 2 cases that have failed to recognize the power of the Dormant Commerce Clause. One's out of Washington State, the other one's recently out of Maryland, and both of them hinged on saying, well, it's federally illegal, so the Dormant Commerce Clause doesn't apply. Not anymore. And then also, Joe, like one of the things the medical patients don't need to worry about when they're growing their own in Virginia, is it medical grow your own or is it adult use grow your own?
Medical.
It's adult use.
Oh,
wow. Okay, so you had it better than us. But in the rider, so the rider that's been in the budget since 2014, the Robacher Afara rider, that will remain. And so, like, if that's still in the budget, they aren't going to be able to do anything to remove the patient's at least right to cultivate their own. The adult, sure, but then you get into police powers, and the feds aren't going to come in and stop adults who are complying with their state's laws cultivating their own crops.
And Tina, you're in Nevada, the 702, as you like to say, right?
702.
And that is probably the most progressive of states, because you guys were actually able to get social clubs open and operational now in Nevada. Since we're not there, I'm going to guess that at some point you may have actually been in one or checked it out. What's the scene like in those social clubs in Nevada?
I have. I have been to the newest one that just opened was Planet 13, called Dazed, D-A-Z-E-D. I haven't been to their location yet, but I will go there sometime in mid to end of May. New Woo, they have had their cannabis lounge open for several years now, called the Sky High Lounge. They're not recognizing that one as a Nevada cannabis social lounge because it didn't have to get approved by the Nevada Cannabis Board, being that it's on tribal land and it's owned by the Paiutes. It's on Paiute land. So that one's been open for a number of years. And then Smoke and Mirrors opened on March 5th, I believe. I have been to their location and I got to experience their mocktails, which were lovely. I got to experience pre-roll with a good friend of mine. We experienced the whole lounge experience. I wish I could pull another word out, but lots of good music, and met the folks there. So I plan on returning back there and meeting the management team there. So yeah, but there's 37 more licenses pending there, and they're not moving as swiftly as I would like them to, as Las Vegas would like them to, as Nevada would like them to, as the industry would like them to, as everybody would like them to. We want them to flourish. We have 45 million visitors that come into Las Vegas. People need a place to consume. They can't hide around a building outside of the Mirage, and then security, hey buddy, you gotta leave, It's getting ridiculous. In some hotels, I've heard word from certain people that, if you leave your marijuana in sight of housekeeping, that housekeeping will blow the whistle on you. I don't know if this fact is true, but if that's your medical marijuana and you need that for health reasons, that's not a good situation. We need these lounges to open. We need them to be profitable. We need them to be fun. We need them to be part of the Las Vegas experience ecosystem. We need them to flourish, and we need them to just be expanding across all of the USA. But it's capital, it's money.
Well, and Massachusetts has it in their law that was passed in 2016 by the voters, and it's still, what is it, 2024 now? They still don't have a legal social club open in the Massachusetts state, and
Wow.
it's crazy. You know what? You guys know, and Thomas, you as an attorney, and I make fun. I call it cannabis standard time. Nothing is easy in this world, and in the cannabis world, it's twice as hard to just survive. And
what do you think this is? Hemp? So like it's one of those, because I won my license. I applied for my license over a year ago. I won it 10 months ago. I filled out my final paperwork that said I'm in the first cohort to be announced.
Congrats.
2-3 weeks ago now, and still no license.
Yeah. Cannabis standard time. It's what it is. And I've always said, I've really felt that there was a conspiracy of sorts to slow down the rollout of the cannabis industry and to make it as difficult as possible for operators like you, Thomas, to actually open, and beyond opening, survive. And I think that's true in almost every state now, that there is more and more barriers to entry. I just wonder, the big picture, again, moving it off Schedule 1, how is this going to change? Are we getting closer to normalization? Joe, I think you wanted to say something. Go ahead.
No, I was just listening.
Oh, okay. Never mind. Sorry. I thought, was it somebody wanted to cut in there? It's fine. All right. It's all good.
I did. I just wanted to say something that came up earlier when we first when we kicked off the call, and that is, Luke Flood from Curaleaf. He had mentioned in all of this coming about, he's one of the regional executives for Curaleaf, and he has 16 dispensaries between Nevada and Arizona. And he stated that they would save $150 million in taxes for 280E. And that's a big number.
Yeah, I just hope
that came out in the last 24 hours, and that was specifically Luke Flood from Curaleaf that stated that. So,
that's a lot of lobbyist dollars they could buy.
That's right, lobbyist dollars, and I was also saying they can also use that for marketing too, if you catch my drift, and sponsorship.
They can't. Well, you had no marketing budget in Schedule 1, and said, but if it's legal. At least if you're advertising marijuana, when are we going to be able to buy online ads? Because you have hemp dispensaries selling the exact same thing that I'm going to be selling at my dispensary, doing online ads on social media, online transactions. Is now the industry being legal? I mean, you go watch your nightly news, and there will be a lot of controlled substances bringing you that news.
Right.
Lots of pharmaceutical dollars are spent on advertising. And so it'll be interesting to see that First Amendment right that we'll have. Who knows how that'll turn out.
Right. And I think there are some lawsuits, or in Massachusetts, I know, is involved with one of those to try and open up the marketing dollars and allow advertising. Thomas Howard from Cannabis Legalization News, live on Sunday afternoons, and from Illinois. I appreciate you taking some time out this week to join us. Tina, always a pleasure. I love hearing about Las Vegas. I wish I could just snap my fingers and put me in Las Vegas, right. I know. And Joseph, you're going to NECANN this weekend in Baltimore, right?
I sure am. I'm going to be leaving this morning at around 4:30. I should be there about 9:45, and it's going to be a lot of fun. And I look forward to bringing back an awesome report.
Great. Thank you so much. All right. We have another group ready to come in and kind of wrap this whole thing up. So don't go away. The We Talk News special about Schedule 3 continues after this.
We're going to help them, number one, fix up their business, fix up their personal credit, establish business credit, help them with crowdfunding, because we think that crowdfunding is a very viable option now that there's certain companies that are in it. And then go back to friends and family looking for capital after they've already proven themselves, after they have revenue, after they're semi-established, so that it's not an uncomfortable situation with mom and dad on, holidays.
Welcome back to the We Talk News special on Schedule 3. And it's an exciting time for the cannabis industry, or not, as we continue to take a look at it and check in with our We Talk News correspondents. Andrew Behringer from Washington, D.C. joins us back here again. And now we're joined by Doug Miller from New Jersey. He's the guy who's high on Wall Street and does a fine job of keeping an eye on what's going on Wall Street with those cannabis stocks. And Doug, I know this was a big week for them, wasn't it?
Oh, it was, Jimmy. And honestly, 2 weeks ago on the show, I literally said something is going to happen big. They were pulling back, but as them charts all set up, I went through all them ETFs. You even said, holy cow, that's a lot to go through. And I said, oh, it was easy. It was real quick because every chart looked the same. And when that happens, it doesn't matter what sector, what industry, what's going on. I know something's about to happen. And yeah, 2 weeks later, boom, they said, yeah. And it just amazes me. I say it all the time. And again, it doesn't matter what sector or industry. The chart's set up about 2 to 3 months early. And I was saying these back in January. They're setting up. I knew something was going on. And then 2 weeks ago, I could really tell when they just all looked the same. Boom, they were ready. And it happens all the time. And I go 2-3 months early on events, and it's just because these charts don't lie. And it's amazing to me that they can set up 2 to 3 months before an event happens, and it happens no matter what's going on all the time. And it's just amazing that money knows what's going to happen in advance.
So is there insider information going on here? Is there a conspiracy, Doug?
I mean, like I said, it's every industry, every sector, and you see what goes on in Congress and Nancy and all the different crazy trading things. And again, I just look at stock charts. I happen to have a skill at it. I say I'm very blessed to be able to do what I can do, and I just call it how I can see it, and that's all. I don't try to see anything different. Whatever that chart tells me is what I say, and like I say, it can change 10 minutes later, but for the most part, 8 out of 10 times it's dead on. And especially when they all line up like that, you just know something's going to happen. And yeah, it's just amazing that it works that way.
And Andrew's already given us a reaction when he heard that the DEA actually recommended moving cannabis off Schedule 1 to Schedule 3. When you heard that, and of course you're clairvoyant, you were able to know that something was going on. What was your reaction?
It was a mixed reaction, Jimmy. I think, as I told you before, happy and sad because, as a lot of people, if not like you really are in this industry, we don't want rescheduling, we want descheduling.
Right.
Because it's a plant, it shouldn't be illegal, it's a plant. And that's all. And I think, honestly, and that's where the double-edged sword has, the tip is, at least, is like it's deschedule and reschedule on each side, right? And a lot of people are in this industry. We want descheduling, but unfortunately, with politics in this country and how everything has been set up in our two-party system, it's a pathway, and it can't go from heroin to nothing. A tomato plant.
Legal, right?
Yeah, it has to have some kind. And plus, how else are people going to potentially win re-election? I don't know, Jimmy. I'm just
I'm going to try and leave the politics out of it, Andrew, even though you can't. I get it, but the feedback and some of the media coverage that I've seen. Do you guys have any reaction to anything? Did you read anything that surprised you? I think one of the things that came up in our discussion earlier was now healthcare systems, health insurance may be in a position to cover medical cards, medical use. I mean,
Jimmy,
Andrew, go ahead.
I'd love to, as a medical patient myself, as someone who suffers with epilepsy, cannabis, the ability to go in and get cannabis as medicine and then have your insurance company cover it, like where you don't I get to pay the deductible of $1 for my prescription of cannabis, just like any other medicine. On the downside, remember, this is the double-edged sword we were just talking about. Pharmaceutical companies now get to enter the race. And because their losing industry of opioids was a $16 billion industry, now cannabis surpassed that, in 2021?
Yep.
In a cash-only industry, Schedule 1, and now it's a Schedule 3. So, this just comes back to we got a lot of uphill battles from so many different industries, and pharmaceutical one is just one of them. So.
Yeah. Doug, I'm hearing small pharma would get involved now in the cannabis space. Not big, because it's not big yet. Are you hearing anything like that now?
Yeah, I think it's going to be this change was more a medicinal change. I don't think it's really going to be anything an effect for like anything big. They need the Safer Banking Act to really do something. Again, without it being federally legal, I don't see how an insurance company is going to cover it, even though it's rescheduled to a 3. Because they still federally have it illegal. It's just so all over the place because, yeah, they're rescheduling things, but yet this is illegal. And I really think they're going to just push a lot more medicinal purposes with cannabis with this rescheduling. It does help being in a different category, not being considered heroin and LSD. But yeah, I think a lot of the small farm is going to get into it because again, it's not that big yet. They're going to have their hands, and then as it starts to really move, big farm is just going to be all over it. And we just already know it can eliminate like Tylenol and half the stuff that's on in a CVS or a Rite Aid, so they're definitely going to take advantage of it. It just has to get to that federal level for them to really go all in.
Yeah, and the one thing that we really haven't touched on, and Andrew, I know you'll totally agree with me on this one too. No matter what schedule it is, 1 to 3, the movement is continuing to happen, and there are still people in jail for possession crimes. There are still people in jail for nonviolent cannabis offenses, and this means nothing to them, because they can't do anything about it until something federally happens in the legality department. Andrew, I mean, if you had to balance the social equity component of cannabis, the people who've been most impacted by the failed war on drugs, and help them get back into the society, help them get out of jail, this doesn't change that, does it?
Jimmy, you just gave me like an open.
That's what I do.
To respond to this beyond that, yes and no. This industry, it can't just be like, hey, we're going to reschedule this, right, or deschedule this. It should have come with, as a legal person, it should have come with terms to the agreement, right? We only would like to reschedule it if. I don't know, there's structure for reentry and education with currently incarcerated people, with expungement processes and priority to get reentry, not only with education, but into this industry that they so deserve to be at the forefront of. And at the same time, people will still continue to be arrested for this plant as a Schedule 3 drug. So it's going to be, like you said, interesting to see how it goes.
Right. Which, as a news person and as an executive producer of a national news show, I'm very happy about that, because every state's still going to be different. There's always going to be something happening. It's one of the reasons why I find the industry so fascinating, and so many, because it touches on science, it touches on social injustice, it touches, unfortunately, on politics. I mean, it's fascinating to be in it and watching it all evolve. And it's one of the reasons why I started this, is I really felt an obligation to document this fight, because it ain't going away now. You've got 24 states that have adult use legalization. You have 38 states that have medical programs. Call me crazy, but at this point, shouldn't we just legalize the darn thing and let the states figure out what they want to do with it? Because the fight alone is taking a lot out of people too. Doug, I rant a lot. What's your feeling about that one?
Well, it's just one of them things. Like you said, it's taking a lot out of a lot of people. You have these MSOs that are just bleeding money because of all the politics and the nonsense going on. And I said in the video that they were going to do something. Again, charts tell you everything. And I said it was politically motivated. It had nothing to do that. And we won't get into politics, but it wasn't because they were trying to do the right thing for the citizens. They were doing something for politics, and that's a fact, and it's fine. But again, you have big companies just bleeding money and getting killed out there trying to do the right thing, but they can't because they have the law so screwed up and they're just screwing with people. And it's not really fair when you can't run a business like every other industry can, and you can't even use a bank. So,
Right.
I mean, really, what did the reschedule and help?
That's but getting rid of the 280E is going to give a shot in the arm, if you will, to some of the smaller operations that, you know, their margins are like this, and at least now they can breathe a little bit and say, well, at least we don't have that federal tax burden that we have had. Now we can start writing off regular business expenses just like every other business does. And my big question is, and I probably should have had my accountant on here to talk a little bit about this, but I didn't. But how quickly, if you're filing quarterly as a business, when can you start writing off those regular business expenses? That's the thing, because right now this has just been a suggestion by one department of our federal government. Now it goes over to the White House budget world, right? They have a budget committee that has to look at it all, right?
I believe so.
Yeah, and then we have a period of public opinion too, which is going to be really fascinating, because at this point, how are the prohibitionists going to keep saying, oh, you know, what about the kids? This is a game. You know what? No more kids, no more gateway drug stuff, please. Okay. This has medicinal purposes. And I understand that the word recreational, a word I don't like at all, is out there. But, you know, I always use this analogy. Do we use Robitussin recreationally? Because guess what? That stuff gets you really high.
You're lit.
Right? It does. And yet, and you still have to be adult 21 to go out of, to walk out of there with that product, right? But nobody talks about that. Anyway, Andrew, last thoughts about the movement to Schedule 3. I mean, obviously, we're going to be covering it as it goes. And at least now we can move away from so-and-so is pressuring the DEA to make a decision. Those stories are now over with, right?
Yeah, now we can actually focus on like what's going to happen. Like now we're in this like quasi gray area of like what ramifications, regulations and stuff will they enact. And I'll just like say this for everybody who's listening. And just like Doug was saying, like we don't know. Like it may not be good, it may be good, like, but think about it this way, especially like with safe banking, right? We were so close to passing safe banking as a Schedule 1 drug.
Right.
Can you imagine how much easier it's going to pass if it's a Schedule 3 drug?
I'd like to think that. I just don't think.
Look, I don't like legal person. I don't like wishy-washy, hope, dream, wish kind of things.
Yeah, I know.
But like, maybe.
You know what? And give Chuck Schumer credit, because he hasn't given up. He is trying hard to move his Senate forward with this. And, you know, now he has a little bit of momentum behind him. And, you know, he brings up the fact that 88% of Americans want to see it legalized at this point. You know, will we see an executive action on October 15th? You know, right 3 weeks before the 3 weeks before the election? Is that the next step, Doug? You're going, could be, right? It could be, right?
I'm telling you, these charts they all pulled back when the Fed had to speak, but everything was red yesterday, crypto, stocks, everything. And I was just looking at them all just before we came on. And I mean, they were all just set up. They're going back up. If anyone's trades options, you might want to look at the long options on all the ETFs and cannabis companies, because I mean all the charts are set up to run, so they're not pulling back. Let's say that.
Yeah. All right. Well, now is certainly the time, and I've got to thank not just you two, but everybody on the We Talk News team. I'm so proud of the fact that we're able to have different opinions, different laws, and different perspectives from 15 different states around the country with our weekly news. I so appreciate the people that have subscribed to our YouTube channel, that are starting to follow what we're doing here and what we've done. It's one thing to know that we're doing a weekly news show, but if you go back in the archives, there's hundreds of interviews that we've done, that I've done, that are out there that are still evergreen, and you can all learn from them. So I appreciate, Andrew, your reporting on Washington, D.C. Keep that up. And Doug, of course, High on Wall Street and those stock tips. I'd like to see somebody come along and say, hey, you know what? Let's sponsor that, because I think it's a really great feature and a great service that we're providing our listeners. So keep that up as well, Doug. Appreciate both you guys. That'll wrap us up for this special edition of We Talk News on Schedule 3. The movement continues. So for everybody here on the We Talk News team, I'm Jimmy Young. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. And remember, it is a whole new world of weed out there. Use it responsibly.